Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first Inspired Live. I really hope this goes okay. I've never done a live stream before. So, yes, we will see how this goes. I hope it's entertaining. I hope you find it insightful. There's a comment thread that you can see on the side. I can see your comments as they come through. So please do pop any questions you have. We'll look forward to those later on. Equally, if you want to let us know where you're watching from, that'd be fantastic. And yes, I will get into the session for you. So I'm just going to share my screen and hope it works. 3, 2, and 1. Boom. Okay. So we are here. We are in for Inspired Live. So we're going to be live. We've got an hour. If it takes an hour, fantastic. It might be a little bit less than an hour. So we'll just see. I'll run through an agenda of what we're going to talk about today in the session. And yes, I really hope you enjoy it. So let's get cracking. Okay, so here is the agenda for today. So we have an introduction because obviously you have to have an introduction. We're then going to dive into Inspired Live. I then also have 3 bonus content tips for you, which I really think are going to help you kind of hone your content craft and get a better understanding of the content and the tools you can use to make better decisions. And then we're going to jump into a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions about content, about LinkedIn, about social media, please do pop them in the thread for me, and I really look forward to answering them for you. So, the introduction. God, there's a lot of pictures of me in it. I'm definitely an egomaniac. Hello, Scott. Hello, Phoebe. Hello, Millie. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, so this is me. What's good, people? I'm Chris Hayden. I am the head of content at Finally Agency. If you're familiar with Finally Agency, you'll know that we are a digital marketing agency for the engineering and manufacturing sector. So this is a little bit about me. I am an aspirational farmer. I am a proper loser, and I love the outside and farmyards, and I'd very much like my own farm or a small holding in the future, which kind of leads naturally on to the fact I'm always in the great outdoors. That is my happy place. You may know me as Captain Friday. I produce Spotify playlists, and my weird skill is I have a really ridiculous music knowledge. Give me a song, an album artwork, an era, I can probably answer it for you. So if you want to go on, what's that game show called with the Hit List, the one with Marvin Hughes? If you want a partner, holler at your boy. I am a below average tennis player. I am poor at tennis, but alas, we persist. And most of all, I'm a massive content fanboy. I'm really passionate about content. I believe content is the cornerstone of communication, and certainly in marketing and personal branding, your content is everything. And that is really the kind of the main reason why we started to produce Inspired and how it's gone on for such a long time. So obviously I have to have some housekeeping. I know, sorry, boring, but it's a relatively short slide, so bear with me. As I said, if you have any questions, I would love to read them and reply to them. So please just pop them into the thread throughout this session, and I will do my best to answer them all during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. As I've said, this is my very first live. So if you have any feedback, positive, negative, indifferent, whatever, please do send it to me. My email address is on the screen. It's chris@wearefinally.co.uk. So this is the first time I've ever done it, so I'm really intrigued to learn and get better at this. So any comments that you have, I would love to receive them. And naturally, I have to plug my LinkedIn profile, right? This is Inspired Live on my LinkedIn profile. So if you aren't already connected with me or following me, please do. I post content on LinkedIn every day that will help you make better marketing decisions. And there'll be lots of things like Inspired that you can enjoy on my profile. Okay, so here's a little kind of recap about Inspired in case you're not familiar with the series. It was started in March 2021, and basically around the beginning of 2021, we were talking about a way of how we can kind of add more value to the LinkedIn community. And Inspired came up as an idea where we could showcase great content from LinkedIn creators and add commentary on it and showcase it on, our own network. And it's been a really great tool for me to connect and engage with like-minded creators and build that network and build that rapport. And it's something I massively look forward to creating every month. It's a monthly video series, normally focuses on 5 great posts from LinkedIn content creators. And yeah, I love making it. I've had really good feedback on it over, the last sort of nearly year and a half of producing it. And this was an idea to kind of go live and experiment and do something a little bit different. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. But I wanted to add the last thing here, the last point of the did you know, that every episode of Inspired I've ever made has always been recorded on my iPhone. no additional audio, no microphones, no fancy editing software. I have literally shot every single episode of Inspired with a mobile phone tripod that you can get for about 10 quid on Amazon and my phone. And the reason I'm telling you this is because a lot of people don't create content because they don't believe they have the resources or the infrastructure to do it. You do. If you have a mobile phone and you have the internet, you are able to produce content for your LinkedIn profile. It really is as simple as that. The complex bit is finding out the idea, and that is exactly what Inspired is here for. So, enough of the nonsense, enough of the pleasantries. Let's do my signature move and let's jump right into this one. So here is Inspired Live. And as I said, normally I have 5 posts, but as this is a live and it's going to go on for a little bit longer, I've got an extra post for you today. So the first post today is from John Asperian. Now, if you don't follow John Asperian, please take the time to search for him on LinkedIn and follow him and connect with him. He's one of the best creators, in my opinion, on the platform, and he provides consistent, regular, helpful information about updates that's happening to the platform, changes, additions. He's a real great kind of source of learning for me. And John is featured on Inspired frequently, and that's because I believe he offers consistent value to this community. And he has a great post here this month, which is all about stop self-liking content. Now, I will personally admit that I've always found liking your own posts to be a bit cringe. It's kind of like laughing at your own joke in a way. But there was a direct benefit and reason why people self-liked their content. Without getting too technical, when you post a piece of content on LinkedIn, the first hour of that life cycle is where that content is going to get the largest boost in reach. And what reach is, in layman's terms, is essentially the percentage of your audience that will actually see your content. So how LinkedIn will actually send that content to your viewers, essentially. So by starting your piece of content with a comment or a like from yourself is a really good way to kind of give it that kick start and move it forward so LinkedIn see it as valuable. The trouble is it does look a bit lame. Liking your own post is not exactly the coolest thing. But there's a new feature on LinkedIn which is really helpful. And if you are a B2B business, if you're a freelancer, if you have a company presence on this page as well as a personal presence, you can start commenting and reacting on your personal posts from your company page. The reason you should do this is because, one, it looks immediately more organic. It looks more believable if another source is talking, reacting to your post rather than yourself. And secondly, it still gives you that additional benefit of that early boost reach. And you can do this on all of your pages. So if your company has multiple employees who each have a LinkedIn profile, when they post content, you can like and comment and react from the company. It works across the board. It's a really good tool and something that you should definitely take advantage of to give your post that little boost forward as you put it out onto LinkedIn. Now, the next post is a very, very focal one around personal branding. And if you look at personal branding creators on LinkedIn, you probably will have noticed there's been quite a large influx of photographs on people's posts. These could be selfies, these could be relatively humorous pictures, these could be pictures of the things they did at the weekend, their holidays, etc. And there's a really important reason for this, and this is what Sophie Gordon showcases in this fantastic post. Whether you're looking to build a personal brand or not, being able to show yourself to your audience is, without question, the most important thing you can do when creating LinkedIn content. And the reason for this is really simple. We buy things from people that we like. The product and the service that you provide is obviously fantastic. But what's more important is that that person actually feels they have a connection with you. If they like you and they trust you, they're so much more likely to buy from you. They're so much more likely to connect, whatever your call to action may be. And this is really important for not just business owners, but also for freelancers and even employees. By people being able to see us and get a feel of who we are as people as much as experts in our field is a brilliant way to not only increase our exposure to ourselves, but also showcase our skills and showcase our interests and make people feel like they're part of our community. And this is why you'll start seeing lots more creators posting photographs of themselves. Now, I know Sometimes you don't want to be put on screen. You don't always want to be on show, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not suggesting that you showcase every inch of your life to your LinkedIn audience. But having regular check-ins with your LinkedIn audience and showing them photographs of yourself and letting them feel like they're building a rapport with you personally is only going to help you professionally. This is a really, really good piece of advice. It's a fantastic tip. And equally, please go and follow Sophie. She posts really helpful content about personal branding. So if you're trying to build your personal brand and enhance your image and your credibility on LinkedIn, she's a really great person to engage with. Next up, we have a post from Richard van der Blom. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Richard van der Blom, he, in my opinion, does the most extensive and I would say important research around LinkedIn content. He is consistently analyzing things like hashtags, post performance, content type performance, all of those algorithmic things that go into essentially having a successful LinkedIn content strategy. Richard is your man. He is an absolute just treasure chest of really helpful insight. So please do check him out. Now, he posted a post recently about 5 content myths that are regularly spanning around LinkedIn. But I actually wanted to focus on the first 3 because I feel like these first 3 tips are the ones that are genuinely really helpful. These are the ones that if you understand these, you can go on and make better content decisions for your LinkedIn profile and your company page. Now, the first one is about impressions. Now, a lot of people confuse impressions with likes, engagements, and to make it as simple as possible, an impression is how frequently someone sees your post. So, for example, if you were to watch a video and you were to watch that video 3 or 4 times, you would leave 3 or 4 impressions. So each interaction generates a new impression, which is quite easy to see how posts can somehow span big impressions and get large volumes of them. But maybe they're not actually driving anything forward. So just because you have a post with a high quantity of impressions does not mean necessarily that post is going to be massively beneficial for you or for your business. And I think a lot of it really depends upon what your goals are, what your priorities are with your content. If you want more people to see your content, then yes, high impression numbers are great. But if your ultimate goal is to turn your LinkedIn into a lead generating machine and for people to buy you as a person and go on and buy your services, this is not the be all and end all. The next is the more content you publish equals the more leads. This is not true. There is a real benefit in the idea of quality, not quantity. As someone who's a content creator and someone who teaches people about LinkedIn, I will always encourage you to post regularly. I will always say a regularly engaged profile is a better profile because it's active. So posting often is a benefit. But just because you post every day does not mean every post you're going to put out is actually valuable. It doesn't mean every single piece of content you provide is going to have the desired result that you seek. So really think about the quality of the content you're producing. Does your audience need to know this? Is this really critical for helping their pain points, for educating them, whatever that target may be? And lastly, it's more connections will yield more engagement. This is not true. And this is something that feeds back into what I said earlier about reach. The way that LinkedIn showcases your content is based on a percentage of your audience. So the rough estimate is around 10% of your audience will see your content. So for the ease of math, if you had 50 connections, 5 people would roughly see your post. That's the general insight. But having a large following and having lots of connections isn't actually always to your benefit, because how many of those connections are aligned to you? How many are they aligned to your business, to your goals, to your target customer? It's better to have a smaller pool of active connections who are really engaged with you, engaged with your brand and your business, than to have a huge spectrum of people who become oversaturated with the things you post. I think this is really helpful information and advice from Richard, and I really encourage you to give him a follow. He posts so much highly researched content. And actually, Richard practices what he preaches. He doesn't post every day. He posts a few times a week. And when he does, it's an absolute avalanche of information. There's so much that you can understand and learn just from looking at his posts. So please do check him out. The fourth is from Laura Lewis, and it's about social no-nos. And I think these apply to not just LinkedIn, but other content. So if you have a multi-channel marketing approach and you perhaps use Instagram or TikTok or various other platforms, these are all really, really important tips. All of them, I believe, are equally important. But I think for me personally, one of the biggest ones is the third point she puts out here, which is not jumping on random trends. It's really easy to get like swept up in things that are going on, viral trends, things that people are talking about and wanting to be part of that conversation. And whilst that's great, it's only great if it's actually relevant to the content you produce and the people who consume it. It's all well and good you making memes and things like that, but if they don't actually tie back to the content and the types of messages that your audience wants, it's kind of falling on deaf ears. So it's really important to actually understand your audience and get a feel of the things that they actually care about and the content that you produce that they attach themselves to most. And then if you're able to blend in a trend or a trending hashtag or something, and it feels organic and it works, go for it. That's awesome. But don't try and force these things because it doesn't work. Additionally, I like the point that she makes here about not using every social media account. Again, this kind of funnels back to understanding your audience. If your audience is probably not the type of people that will be browsing TikTok, then you don't necessarily need to be posting on TikTok. So it's really about doing a lot of research before you start producing good content for your social media platforms. And I'm a firm believer in it's better to be a master of one than a master of none. If you can perfect LinkedIn and you run with LinkedIn and that's where your audience is and that's your target, and you can, have a structure where you see results being generated through LinkedIn usage, then run with LinkedIn. It's the place to be. Equally, if you're B2C or you're a freelancer and you want to showcase your amazing design skills, then perhaps Instagram is the best place for you. You can use it like a portfolio. So it's having a real good understanding of your objectives, what your audience want from you, and essentially how you package that content, how you put it out to them. This is a really, really good tip. I highly recommend you follow Laura as well. She posts regularly. And if you are creating content for more than just LinkedIn, she is a great source of inspiration. Next up is a post from Roman Pikolenko. And if you don't follow Roman, he is a big personal brand advocate. And he provides lots of training and tutelage around how to kind of hone your personal brand and actually take ownership of it. And I think this is really important if you are creating content for your own benefit as well as company content. The reason I focused on this post from Roman this month is actually because of the small points he puts here. He comments on the fact that if you make a list of creators who inspire you, no matter the size, these are people that you are going to kind of help scope your content. So these are the people who are going to give you the opportunity to think about what content you want to make, showcase it, and how you want to frame it. I think this is really important because actually looking at other people for inspiration is the best way that you're going to create quality content. You're giving yourself a kind of benchmark. You're giving yourself a set where you want to move from. These are the type of people I want to engage with. I love this content because of X, Y, and Z. And you can go on and you can repurpose and package that to suit you and your audience. And equally, he makes a good point here about commenting on their posts. Actually engaging with people who inspire you is a brilliant, brilliant tool for many reasons. One, you're starting to build an audience. You're starting to become affiliated with the people that you're interested in. That's sparking a relationship. That's enhancing your networking. That's all really positive. But also, if certain creators align to your audience, the chances are there's people in their comment section who also align to you. So you can actually span your network through communicating on their posts as well. There's like-minded people all over LinkedIn who are regularly looking for information, for advice, for support, and they can be found everywhere. And a comment space on a popular trending post or an influential creator is a really, really good place to be. I highly recommend checking out Roman. He posts regularly. He's a really great dude, and his posts are really helpful. And if you are looking to try and sculpt your personal brand, get a better understanding of what personal branding is, how you can use it for your own content strategy, for growing your own business, he's a brilliant source of information. And lastly, Brucey bonus, 6th post is from Sophie Miller. I've never showcased a post from Sophie on Inspired before, but I really liked this. And I think a lot of the time on Inspired, we talk about great content tips, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. But actually, we don't often talk a huge amount about what an audience is actually doing. And she made a very topical post a couple of weeks ago about why some people have started to see dips in their engagement. And I wanted to highlight this because it emphasizes that user behavior changes. People do not do the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. There are so many external factors that go on in people's lives. And if you look at the months of July and August, that is a time where people are going to be more sporadic. They might be on holiday. They might be doing other things. They might be going to events. There's a big plethora of stuff that's going on that's outside of your control. But what's inside your control is still making good content and actually looking at what you can do with that content. So checking your insights, checking your engagement rate, see the content that's generating the most engagement. You can start looking at the competition and see what they're talking about. Where are their results coming in? What type of contents are they using? And you can start actually directly asking your audience, what do they want? What right now is really important to them? What tools are they really seeking? What insight are they looking for? What topics do they care about? Audiences change. And the biggest battle is not just winning their attention, but retaining their attention. And the best way to retain their attention is to understand that there will be peaks and troughs. Everyone does not run at 100% every single day. Every user is not always on LinkedIn at the exact same time of the day. I think this is a really good tip. And I think this is something that hopefully is motivating because I know how deflating it can be producing content and putting time and effort into it and then not yielding the results that you want. But it's really important to understand that user behavior does shift. And that does not mean that what you're doing is not worth doing, because believe me, it is. Okay, so that wraps up Inspired Live section. I very much hope you enjoyed it. I've tried to keep it as similar as to how I do the video, but obviously I've rambled slightly extra because I am live. I'm going to have a slug of tea because I'm dying. It's cold. So as a little bit of a bonus, I've got some extra content tips here. Now, these content tips essentially fit to every kind of module of content creation for your business. So whether you're producing business solely for yourself, you're a personal brand expert, whether you're a freelancer, you're B2C, you're B2B, whatever your framework may be, these are great tips that you can use to make better content decisions. And the reason I put these in here is because they actually come a lot from the work that we do at Finally. As I mentioned at the beginning, we work with the engineering and manufacturing sector. It's an absolutely fascinating sector that's rich with science and progression and technology and all of these fascinating things. But it's actually sometimes for those businesses difficult to communicate how they want to communicate. And actually understanding some of these additional tips is a really good way to kind of actually give you a better perspective of how to frame and shape content. So I really hope you find them helpful. So the first is focusing on benefits, not features. You may have heard this before, but I'm going to reinforce it because I cannot stress how important this is. If you are promoting a product, a service, something that you sell or offer, lasering in on why it helps someone is always going to be more compelling than maybe what the thing does. Now, I've put an image here of the original iPod, which came out in the kind of the late 1990s, the early 2000s. This is a very, very famous campaign from Apple. And as we all know, a lot of people use Apple as like a benchmark of messaging. They are masters of marketing. Now, when they launched the iPod, essentially what they were doing was trying to replace the previous generation of portable music, the Walkman, the Discman, etc., where you had a CD or a cassette, your headphones, jobs are good. The trouble with that was it was relatively restrictive. I remember having my Walkman, trying to skateboard with it, did not fit in my pocket, would drop out all the time, got annihilated. It wasn't particularly useful. The iPod is an MP3 player. So the feature of the iPod is that it's a 1 gigabyte memory MP3 player with 10 hours battery life. Cool. Brilliant. Is that a strong enough selling point for that product? Not really. So what Apple did is they launched with a 2-sentence campaign. The first sentence is on the screen, say hello to iPod. It's become pretty synonymous in marketing ever since. The second line is the benefit. And for me, it's one of the best examples of benefits, not feature content. It was say hello to iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Immediately, everybody knows the benefit and the value for buying an iPod. I can move my entire music library from my CD rack, my vinyl rack, onto my device, which slots into my pocket, and away I go. My entire life, I can have my music with me. It's a brilliant, brilliant USP. So when you're creating content to showcase the services and the products that you provide, really hone in on the actual benefit to the customer, the tangible benefit. So for example, it could be trying to think of an example now. It's really hard. So for example, like if you've got a key feature that you want to showcase, right? How can you paraphrase that in a way that's compelling for an audience? How can you focus on maybe a pain point that you're solving, a problem that you're solving? That's always going to be more compelling. That's always going to pay higher dividends. This is a really, really good piece of advice. It works across all spectrum of marketing, regardless of what level of communication you're using, whatever product or service you're using. Focus on the benefit and how your product solves pain, makes a customer's life better, enhances their experience. All of these things are way more compelling than the features. The next is to use your sales team. And I've got a picture here of the Avengers, and there is a reason for that. Your sales team are essentially your superheroes. They are the frontline defense of your business. They are the people who have the most interaction with your customers on a day-to-day basis. And with this in mind, they probably actually know your customers better than anybody else. They probably have a better and richer understanding of the troubles that your customers face, the issues, the things they want solved, better than anybody else. So my advice is to actually allow your sales team, whether that's 1, 2, 50, however many there are, to actually produce content. Allow them to ask customers the questions that they need answering and let them create content which answers that. Because in time, what you'll be doing is you'll be creating a huge bank of resource, a bank of resource that is going to help people on whatever stage of a buying journey they may be in. A lot of people just think we'll make an FAQ section and pop it on the website and that will do. And FAQs are brilliant, but actually allowing your sales team who engage with the customer, with that end user every single day, to produce content that actually educates them and advances that relationship is going to help the process fasten, quicken, improve. So this is a really, really good tip. Release the shackles from your sales team. Allow them to be advocates and content creators for your business. And the final tip is to consider consumption. And I think this is something that actually is quite often overlooked when it comes to content creation. We focus a great deal on making content, the idea behind it, the content type, when we want to post it, where's it being posted to. But we don't spend a huge amount of time thinking about how it's actually going to be consumed, which fundamentally is ultimately the most important thing. If people struggle to consume it, it's useless. It doesn't matter how interesting it is. If it's difficult to consume, it's never going to have the desired effect. So it's really important to think upon the devices that people are using, maybe the times of day, the ratios. If you're making video, are you making sure that video works properly in widescreen? Does that video look good if they broadcast it on YouTube, on the telly? Thinking about how people consume content as well as the content itself will help you become a better content creator. The biggest advice I can give you on this front is with video. Now, a lot of video is consumed without audio. It's very common for people to consume video on a feed, on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever with no audio. The trouble is, if you don't have any captions or any subtitles, that video is very difficult for someone to understand. So actually incorporating those subtitles wherever you can is a brilliant tip. Additionally, if you're broadcasting onto YouTube, think about the actual kind of the definition that you're shooting that video in. If you have a camera that can shoot in HD, shoot in HD. Because what that means is when they look on multiple devices, it's going to have an enhanced image regardless of that screen size. These are all things that I think are really important to talk about and to focus and actually consider when you produce content. Because This will ultimately go on to make you not only make better content, but content that's easier to understand and easier to consume. Okay, cool. So they are the 3 content bonus tips. I hope you found them helpful. I'm going to dive into the Q&A session now. So if you have any questions, please do pop them in the comments for me. I would love to answer them. Additionally, if you have any feedback, as I said, please pop it in the comments or email it over to me at chris@wearefinally.co.uk. I would love to receive it. This, as I said, is my very, very first live session. So if there's anything that's any hiccups or whatever, I can only apologize. But yes, we're going to dive into the Q&A session now. So what I'm going to do, so I'll show you my fancy little slide. I'm then going to go full screen so you can see me in rather large glory. Boom, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at the comment thread now. So I've got a comment from Paul here. Future, could I suggest a calendar invite? Yes, absolutely, Paul. Thank you for raising that. So yeah, this is the first time, so I'm not entirely certain in terms of the setup, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. And yes, we will consider that for the future. Got a lovely comment here from Ian. Thank you very much indeed. That's very kind. Ian is a past client of mine who I trained on LinkedIn. He's a great guy. So thank you. That's lovely to hear. Old Roman's in the chat as well. I hope you enjoyed your post feature, bro. You can pay me on the way out. I'm only joking. So they've got some lovely comments in here. Thank you very much indeed. Lots of support. If anyone does have any cues, that would be really great. I'd love to answer some of them for you. But while some of those come in, I'll talk a little bit around my experiences with content creation, I suppose. So content for me, as I said earlier, is kind of like the cornerstone of everything. Like if you have a really fancy video, that video might look beautiful, but if it doesn't have a great content conception, if it doesn't have a good story, it's just a really pretty video. So really thinking about how you want to frame content in terms of what message do you want to say, how do you want to say it, all of those things that go into enhance your content creation journey. One of the things that I've had to learn as a content creator is how to be a bit more concise. As a writer, I'm prone to kind of talking and adding and layering where I think necessary, but actually great content is concise. If you can make something simple and break it down and remove unnecessary filler terms, that content is always going to be more digestible. Okay, so Roma says, is inspired now always going to be in live? No. However, if people like it, I will make it a feature. This is very much an experiment. I kind of just want to see the vibe and kind of get a feel for how it would work live. So I hope it's been enjoyable. If it is, it will definitely be something that will become a feature. As I said, I've been doing Inspired now since kind of early 2021. So I'm always mindful of, you know, freshening it up and giving it new context and having a new framework for it so it doesn't become stale. So yes, I will definitely experiment with more LinkedIn lives and Inspired lives in the future. And I hope so far it's been good. Got a question here from Millie. It says, Instagram has started to be like TikTok and is receiving a lot of slack for it. Do you think LinkedIn will move in the same direction? And what do you think about changing your content type to suit an algorithm? Should you do it or find a new platform that suits you instead? Okay, awesome question. And I would say it's probably slightly staged question. So my personal opinion on the Instagram versus TikTok thing, I don't like it. However, Instagram are not going to do anything. Like people need to get this into their head, right? Instagram is not going to pivot on this decision unless there is a mass exodus of users. If people stop using Instagram, they close their accounts, they step away from Instagram, almost in protest, they probably will pivot on the decision. But the trouble is, Instagram is owned by Meta. Meta run Facebook. Meta are very good at capping organic reach and accelerating reach on content types they prioritize, which is why video is appearing so much more on Instagram. It's not because people necessarily want to make more video. It's because it's the only thing that's generating more organic reach. And then Instagram can say, awesome, video is the content that everybody wants to see, and prioritize it. So it's a really difficult, complex situation that's going over with Instagram at the moment. In terms of, do I think LinkedIn will move in that direction? No, I don't. I still think LinkedIn is moving more, as we know, into a creator focus, and that's definitely what we want. And the mobile usage of LinkedIn is massively increasing as well. I cannot see the interface of LinkedIn changing that drastically to like a full screen experience where, you know, videos autoplay or whatever. I can't see such a drastic change happening on LinkedIn, that facet. But I can definitely see the likes of LinkedIn and Microsoft will be looking at other social platforms and learning about user behavior and kind of seeing, all right, these are things that are working. Maybe we should try them. LinkedIn previously tried stories, which died a massive death, and that was influenced by the likes of Instagram and Snapchat. So I don't know specifically how much transition is going to happen on LinkedIn, but I think LinkedIn understand this is becoming a creator-led platform, and I'm hoping that those changes are going to be for the better and not for the worse. As for should I stay on a platform or find a new one, I think that's massively dictated to by your audience. I really do. I think platforms do change. As I said earlier, user behavior changes as well. But I think you really need to know about your audience. If your audience is shifting focus and more of them are moving elsewhere, then maybe it's time to look at another option. This is the fundamental reason why Instagram is going under such a huge change, because they're losing a really sizable active audience in the very young millennial target market. I'm talking people who are kind of like 14, 15, 16, who are prioritizing TikTok over Instagram. And Meta are worried about losing that audience type to that platform. And that is why they're doing some of these changes. So I think if your audience starts to change and their expectations start to move, that is when you should start maybe exploring another platform or another method of comms. Got lovely comments in here from Jamie. Thank you ever so much, my friend. That's really lovely. He said, do you know why stories went and do you know if they come back? That's kind of, I think I sort of answered that. So they were kind of influencing behavior that was happening on the likes of Instagram and Snapchat. I know stories are still present on Facebook, but they are such a small feature on Facebook. I can't see them coming back to LinkedIn, if I'm honest. From research that I did with inSPIRED, actually talking to content creators, I was actually told that some people who posted stories about, kind of, I've got a new post, actually got poorer performance and reach than just from posting organically, which seems insane. If you're going to add stories as an additional arm of your communication, it should help accelerate your communication, not stall it. So I personally can't see them coming back. And if they do come back, I think they need a really sizable update. I think LinkedIn really need to think about, is this feature adding value to our user experience? Just like we have to think, is our content adding value to our audience? So for me, no, I can't see it happening personally. Got a comment here from Phoebe. What trends do you expect to see grow or start in LinkedIn over the next year? That's a brilliant question. I think more of this. I think more live content. From my understanding as a content creator and as a content consumer, I think there's a real hunger for organic content. People definitely want to be seeing more raw, unedited, unfiltered content. They don't want everything highly saturated. You only have to look at the likes of Be Real and these other platforms that are coming into fruition where people want to see people genuinely. And I think actually that will be a massive benefit to LinkedIn because personal branding is such a powerful driver on this platform now. So I think any way that LinkedIn can kind of enhance that kind of raw, unfiltered, organic trend in content creation and promotion, that would be wicked. I would love to see that. Additionally, maybe there might be some more features physically on creator mode. There are obviously areas of LinkedIn that are not necessarily content driven, but are still really important to the platform, like the promotion of jobs and employment at the moment is really rich. So maybe there might be movement on that. I'd also like to see more pushing for the actual kind of notification bell feature. They kind of dropped the notification bell on people's profiles and didn't tell anybody about it. But actually, it's really good because if you notify the bell on creators that you admire or you enjoy, you're going to see their content, you're going to get the notification. I think that's a really good feature that they kind of just shoehorned in there, but didn't really flesh out. So maybe there'll be more emphasis on that. We've got a comment here from Roman who says about asking for Millie's questions. I don't think you should ever write content to suit the algorithm. It needs to suit what you do and your audience benefits from. And I completely agree. I think that's really important. I think it always has to start and end with that consumer. And we got a comment from Ian. He says, I've tried commenting on posts and being more engaged on LinkedIn over the past few months. However, my SSI score has seemed to have dropped. Does LinkedIn hate me? I hope not. I hope LinkedIn doesn't hate you. So if you're unfamiliar with SSI score, it stands for Social Selling Index. You can check out your SSI score very easily. There's a URL. If you just go onto Google and search LinkedIn SSI score, it will open a new browser and it essentially grades your profile, and it grades it based on a series of things. So commenting and engaging on posts will give you a certain percentage of a score, but also creating content will, the completion quality of your profile will, and the quality of your connections. And this is the slightly ominous one, because a lot of people have large quantities of connections, but they may not be, I don't want to say it, but quality connections. There may not be people who are really aligned to your audience or to your messaging. So actually looking through your connections list and seeing how many engage with your content is a good way to enhance your SSI score. Additionally, commenting and engaging is a part of it, but also producing is a big part of it. So being more active on your profile wherever possible, creating more content, being more present is going to boost that SSI. SSI is also dictated to by your industry. So you'll get a benchmark score based on where you sit within the percentages of your industry. So changes in your industry may also kind of inflate or deflate that overarching score. So they would be my advice. But I imagine as well, if you have a look online on likes of YouTube, I'm sure there's some really good tutorials about SSI and maybe certain nuances that have come in over the past kind of 6 months. As I say, SSI is tied to the algorithm, and algorithmic changes happen all the time. So really knowing specifically what's happening with the algorithm day to day is really tricky. We have a comment here from Charlotte. She said, how would you encourage people to bring some of their own personality to their social profiles? I see a lot of warm, engaging people who lose a bit of that on LinkedIn. I think this is such a good point. And this kind of goes back to the post I showed from Sophie about kind of adding photographs. One of the reasons people are doing that is because it just adds a little bit more personality. You know, at the end of the day, I've actually said this to Ian on training in the past, but social media is social. It's in the name. And LinkedIn is a social media platform. You know, we want people to see us. We want people to like us. That's really important. What we do professionally is fantastic, but it's who we are that people really attach themselves to. That's the person they want to build a relationship with. My advice in terms of how to encourage people would be, some of it would actually be embracing that bit of inner confidence and allowing yourself to be organic, allow yourself to be seen, take photographs, take video, try and not oversaturate it with filters and try and be as realistic as possible. Additionally, there's always stuff happening in the world that everybody has an opinion on, whether that's political, whether that's social, whatever that might be, a topic trending in your sector. There's always ways that you can add your thoughts and your feelings and share your communication as part of that wider conversation. I think that's a really good way to add personality, because people over time will start seeing how you see the world, how you measure things, how you judge things. And some people will hate that. And that's fine. We kind of want people to hate some of the things we say, because actually, the more people that we isolate, the richer we become with the people who believe in us. So having that dialogue and having that commentary on what you believe in and your thoughts and opinions, paired with a more personalized branding approach, showing photographs, showing videography, talking about your weekend, talking about the dog, whatever it might be, are nice ways of incorporating that humanity onto your profile. Got a comment here. Oh, I've got a question from Charlie. I'll read this one first. So, do you think LinkedIn would ever be a good place for artists to share and sell their work? Oh, that's an interesting question. So in the past, I would have said probably not, just because initially LinkedIn always used to be quite corporate. I think now, yes, I think it would be. But my advice would be, if you wanted to kind of showcase your artwork, showcase the process. You know, the actual finished piece is fantastic. It's a beautiful piece of art and people can appreciate the beauty of art. But if you can showcase the process, I think more people would be bought into, wow, he made that? That's amazing. So, you know, maybe a time-lapse video of you producing a piece of art, maybe talking around the art itself and why you designed it, actually adding that kind of extra kind of texture and layers to the thought process. You're simultaneously showcasing the artwork, but also making content from it. And I think that's really good. You know, people love process. Process is fascinating because it gives it a story. It takes something from A to Z. Most of the time, particularly in marketing, people only see Z. They only see the end product. They just see the finished ad or the finished picture or the finished broadcast. They don't see the process. They don't see the thought, the planning, the structure, the reruns, the amends. They don't see any of that. And actually, that adds so much more texture and weight to it. And I think if you were to showcase that process, that would really enhance not only the quality of the artwork, but actually the story behind it. And I think more people would buy into that. Got a question here from Edwina. She says, I've hit an SM wall right now. How can I keep upbeat with my content, especially during the quiet summer months? My advice with this, Edwina, would be perseverance. And I know that's a really cop-out answer, and you're like, obviously, mate. But perseverance is really, really critical. I think your question here really feeds back into the last post I talked about, insofar as the fact that changes in user behavior do happen, and that can be massively deflating, because how do you know what to keep driving forward with if it's not receiving and yielding the results you want? My advice would be maybe play with some of the internal LinkedIn features. Try a poll. Maybe try a poll post and ask, these are the topics I'm planning on talking about. Which one would you like to see first? Or something like that, maybe. Actually kind of put the onus on your audience to actually give you that information rather than you having to think and guess about it. That's half the battle. So I would suggest maybe doing polls. Additionally, if you can do a really candid video and just grab your phone and chat to your camera a little bit and say, like, I'm hitting a content wall at the moment. I'm struggling with post ideas. Has anyone felt the same way? That might stimulate a conversation. It's all kind of feeds back into actually what Charlotte said earlier about making LinkedIn more human and encouraging that kind of humanity into content. I think if you can bring people into that and actually let people know, I'm struggling right now. I'm not finding what I want to post. I'm not getting the results that I'm seeking. There'll be other people who feel the same way, and maybe you could kind of enhance that conversation, and then that could go on and shape further content for you. I've got a comment here from Scott. He said, what would you say are the key features of a LinkedIn premium account? As a frequent user of the platform, have you been able to discern the positive impacts on your content? Okay, so personally, and I'm sure there'll be some people who'll be like, mate, you're talking nonsense. I don't think LinkedIn premium is particularly worth it. Sorry. The reason why is because LinkedIn Premium is a very good feature if you're using LinkedIn solely for lead gen. If you want to increase the number of in-mails you can send to people and things like that, then yes, I would say it's a good feature. But I would actually say if you're going to invest money in LinkedIn for your business, I would invest in Sales Navigator over Premium. Sales Navigator opens so many more tools to this platform and makes it into a much kind of leaner, stronger content and sales machine. So I would advocate for Sales Navigator over Premium any day of the week, especially when the price disparity is basically the same. In terms of the positive impacts on your content, I think this is a really nice point. Yes. So funnily enough, without being an egomaniac, inSPIRED has been really positive on my profile and how I shape other content. So when I started inSPIRED, it was a bit of an idea and, oh, will this work? We'll try it. Will people like it? What it's actually done is it's made me able to communicate with more people and equally to get a vibe of the things that they're talking about and the things they care about and how I can kind of tweak and tailor content to suit them. And I think that's a really important tool, because the better understanding you are of the consumer, the better the content you're going to make, because you're going to be having much more kind of educated ideas and you're going to be much more focused and principled in what you produce. And for me, the positive impact is seeing growth. And I know, people don't necessarily value growth all the time, but my follower numbers increase daily, which is lovely. So to me, that shows that people like what I post, and not everyone will, and that's fine. But if I can post something that helps someone, or they find it enjoyable or entertaining or funny or whatever, then I've done my job as a content creator. That's what I'm striving to do. So I think seeing how your audience engage with it will help you dictate kind of a better decision making for that content. And then seeing the results that you yield from that, increasing your engagement rate, increasing followers, increasing likes and comments. All of these things are kind of currencies on LinkedIn. So so Reese echoes for the comment I said about Charlie. So yes, I think it's kind of, I think I kind of covered it, but freelancers now are using LinkedIn massively. LinkedIn as a freelancer market is huge. There's lots of people, whether they're personal branding coaches, artists, graphic designers, copywriters, whatever they might be, are using LinkedIn as a platform to sell themselves. So I would encourage to showcase as much as possible of not just what you've made, but how you've made it. As if I can give you a piece of advice, just purely like objective advice about content, think about the stuff that would stop you scrolling. Think about the stuff that would make you go, oh, that's kind of cool. It's interesting. Once you understand how you would see something, you're going to get a better vibe of how someone else would see it. So if you make a beautiful piece of art, the art in itself is wicked, but how you've made it, for me personally, is as interesting, if not more interesting. There's a lot of banter going on about LinkedIn Premium. Yeah, I used to have LinkedIn Premium, and maybe I'm a, I don't know, maybe I'm bad. I never used it as much as some people did. But you said the in-mail bonus is beneficial. Also, the boost you get onto the search rankings is beneficial. So if someone is searching for a specific role or a specific type of person or industry, profiles that have the premium gold badge will appear higher, as you know, in the connection rating. So that is a benefit. But say I will always advocate Sales Navigator over Premium, just purely because I believe if you're trying to use LinkedIn to kind of generate leads and grow your sales funnel, that's the best way. So yeah, has anyone's got any more questions? If not, I will let you go. I'm sure you're sick and tired of hearing me ramble. I hope you've enjoyed today. So this has been the very first time. I've really enjoyed it. If you do have any feedback or any comments, I would love to receive them. So either connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. That'd be wonderful. Or send any feedback to chris@wearefinally.co.uk. I definitely will consider doing more of these if you guys enjoyed it. And any of your feedback will be really helpful in making me finesse this better in the future. So I'm going to shoot back to this because I made it. So yeah. So that concludes today, guys. Thank you ever so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. Enjoy the sunshine, and I will speak to you all very soon. See you later.